Welcome to Football Never Sleeps, the aspiring to be viral, aspiring to be caffeinated, and never aspiring to be streaming from our mother's basement's YouTube show, all about Notre Dame football and a fan base that might need a little guidance as to whether they should hyperventilate or not. I'm Eric Hansen, breathing normally here in South Bend and feeling kind of zen. He's Tyler James, not holding his breath in LaPorte, and together we're the new kids on the blueandgold.com block and the veterans in the press box when it comes to knowing whether to eat the free hot dogs. On tonight's show, we've got a Notre Dame football training camp reset for you to try to decode some of the information that's been flying your way, some of it good, some of it not. We also got our early surprises, our early players we're all in on, early players we need to see more, plus recruiting, maybe some fabulous prizes, but your questions answered, so start filling up the portal. This is Football Never Sleeps.
All right, and I put the comment on the screen from the Blue and Gold channel. This intro gets me ready to run through an effing wall. I imagine that's Mike Singer who did that. I agree. I like our intro. I'm glad I'm the one that's not doing it because I can't do that timing that Eric does. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope everyone is buzzing with the return of Notre Dame football practice last week. We are buzzing as well after hitting 4,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. The handle Hansen and James has changed, but the coverage remains the same. Before we get rolling, make sure that you're subscribed to us here on the channel. Hit the like button as well. And as always, we'll take your comments and questions throughout the show. So please make sure you get those in. And if you haven't joined us over at blueandgold.com, new subscribers can sign up for an annual subscription with a $1 trial for the first week. That will give you access to everything we do, our growing community on the Loose Emoji board, and so much premium content to fill any free time you have during the day. There's so much. We've been doing threads just to list all the content in one day because there has been so much of it. So we hope those of you who have joined us are enjoying it, and those of you who haven't joined us yet, take a chance on us, and we promise we'll have content that you'll enjoy.
All right. Before we get started, I want to say a quick shout out to the guy that wrote our theme song and sings it, Steve Lundgren, my good friend. He has been really struggling with an infection and dropped his phone in the toilet, so we're sending good vibes out to Steve tonight. All right, we are going to our opening drive, from the toilet to our opening drive, beyond the hyperventilation and overreaction. So this is our training camp reset. The media got to see one full practice and two partials last week in the first four that took place. The next time we'll see Notre Dame on Wednesday, we'll see a partial. It'll be practice number 6. One quick note, kind of bigger picture note, the coaches poll came out today. Notre Dame was number 5. Texas was number 1. And then the AP poll will come out next Monday. We've already had a turn on our votes. I'm one of the 64 voters on that panel. So that comes out next Monday. But we're going to push the polls aside and start with putting the quarterbacks in context. So redshirt freshman CJ Carr and redshirt sophomore Kenny Minchey have continued their quarterback battle from the spring. Steve Angeli bowed out of it. He's at Syracuse now. So lots of rough patches, Tyler, on day one when we saw a full practice. And we really didn't see a ton of anything on 2 and 3, just some normal throwing. But you know, Mike Denbrock told us in our interview with him, the offensive coordinator, that some of that is on purpose. They want to create chaos to create separation between these two. They also want to see how those guys bounce back from adversity. So I'm going to start here with you, Tyler. Do you feel that CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey are further along than the glimpses that we saw? In other words, are people panicking prematurely? Some people panicking prematurely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's too early to panic. I don't know that I would say that they're further along, because I think what we've seen are things that they're capable of doing. They're capable of making those mistakes, even if it's in situations that are maybe geared for them to make mistakes. They're probably going to face those on Saturdays when they're on the field. I would say it's not necessarily the full view of them because we just don't get to see enough of them. But It wasn't necessarily reassuring. When we spoke to Gino Guidugli, the quarterback's coach, he made it seem the second day wasn't necessarily great either. We saw the third practice at the beginning when they were doing some one-on-one works with receivers, and there were some ups and downs there. There were no interceptions from what I saw, and some incompletions and even some completions that maybe weren't great throws. But it was certainly better than the first day that we saw. I guess the way I would phrase it is like, maybe don't pump the brakes yet, but turn off cruise control and get your foot over the brake just in case you need to. I think it's sort of a reminder that we can't assume who will win this competition and that they'll automatically be world beaters as well.
For me, I really try to blend because I've known Mike Denbrock since his first time at Notre Dame when he was here with Tyrone Willingham. So his first of 3 tours of duty. I try to read him pretty well and match it up with what we're seeing on the field. And he's not going to be an alarmist, but I think he's pretty honest. He's not a spin doctor, let's put it that way. Yeah. And so for me, I think it's a little bit early to panic. I think he feels really good about where these guys are going to end up. It's just how quickly can he get them there. And that's what his concern was last year with Riley Leonard. He felt like he had something special in Riley Leonard, but he felt like it was a race against time with them, with Riley missing spring football and then having to play catch up in fall camp. The thing about these two guys that's really good is they've been in the Mike Denbrock system for a year now, and I think that's somewhat comforting to him. So, Tyler, here's my next question for you. Do you have concerns that an elongated quarterback competition, we don't know how far this is going to go, could hinder the actual progression of the offense that's going to be different last year? You know, they're trying to put a lot of new things in and do things in different ways. So trying to separate these guys, do you think they can do both, or do you think this is a little bit of a handbrake?
I think it's fair to say the offense isn't going to be firing on all cylinders in game one regardless, just by product of there being a first-time starter out there. I think the thing that maybe is concerning about a elongated quarterback competition is that does the offense need to have differences based on who's the quarterback? Are there enough differences that need to be installed if Kenny Minchie is the quarterback versus CJ Carr? I don't have the answer for that. Obviously, I think most of us believe that Kenny Minchie brings a running dimension that CJ Carr doesn't have as good of a running game to himself, but I think he's capable of running the football at times. So that would be the one bigger concern about the whole length of the competition would be if you need to tweak your offense based on who you pick.
Okay. And I agree with that. I think, again, the fact that they've been in the system, if Mike was a first-year offensive coordinator, I think there would be a little bit more to it. So the other thing is, Mike is really good about giving quarterbacks a little bit more throughout the season. We saw that with Deshaun Kaiser in 2015 with a first-year quarterback who actually wasn't even expecting to be the starter that year. Mm-hmm. And when I was talking to Greg McElroy for the 2-part Q&A I did with him, he said he witnessed that during his first year at LSU with Jaden Daniels coming in from Arizona State. He felt like Jaden could absorb the whole playbook, but just giving him a little bit at a time so that he could master what he was being given. And I do like the history of that kind of pacing.
Yeah.
So Tyler, as far as timing, we talked about elongated. We thought maybe we would get an announcement between August 10th, which we haven't hit yet, and August 17th. Does that timeline still feel pretty realistic in terms of naming a starter?
I think yes, but I don't feel as strongly about it.
You think it could go longer?
I think it could go longer. Gino Guidugli said he'd like to have it. You'd like to have it figured out by the time you get into Miami prep. And so we'll see how that progresses. I think that makes sense. I think around the 17th and moving forward in that next week, I think is when you would see Notre Dame start to shift into more Miami specific practicing versus traditional camp. So I don't feel as strongly about it, but I still think that is maybe the most likely situation. What do you think?
I do think it'll fall in there. I think before we hear from Marcus, or by the time we hear from Marcus on the 17th, we will have a publicly declared number one quarterback. I do think that they'll get to it by then. Okay, one more before we go to questions from the audience. And then I have one I'm saving back in case they don't ask it. So Mike Denbrock said he's having Tyler Buchner and Blake Hebert compete for the number 3 spot. Do you like that approach? And is ND better off big picture with Hebert or Buchner winning that battle?
I guess it depends. I think it depends on the second part of the question. What's Notre Dame better off with? I think it depends on what they're needed to do. If all you need to do is have the third quarterback learn and prepare for the future, then I think obviously you'd rather Blake Hebert be that guy. But if you need the third quarterback to play and winning you a game, I'm not sure that Tyler Buchner wouldn't be the right answer there, because I think he would probably feel the most comfortable and be the most, obviously he's the most experienced. But in terms of, is this the right way to handle it? I think absolutely. I think it would be pretty shocking to me if they weren't competing, because Buchner hasn't been a quarterback for Denbrock or Gaduli, and Hebert's brand new. So I don't think either of them should have something handed to them.
Well, you're right. But I mean, Marcus did have the option to say, look, Tyler, we're going to let you move back to quarterback, but you're the scout team guy. We need to develop Blake for the future. And he didn't do that. He's making them compete.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you could still develop for the future by being the scout team guy. There's plenty of quarterbacks who have done that before. I think it's a better sign for the future if Blake Hebert beats out Buchner. So I think that would be the preferred outcome, probably. What do you think?
All right. I'm ready to go to questions from the viewers.
All right. Speaking of Buchner, Jacob Kaselki says Buchner for Holder of the Year award, over under 2.5 touchdowns for him.
Yeah, so they've got a couple of guys working at Holder right now, and Buchner was one of them that's been holding. I'm going under on your bet, Jacob. I do not think it will be over 2.5 touchdowns for him as a holder.
Yeah, I'd probably put the line at maybe 1.5. I mean, 1 seems like a lot if he's not playing much, but maybe lower the line. So yeah, I would take under as well. But I do think, I mean, it's a good idea to have him as the holder if he's good at it and also presents that threat to the opposing team, because you never know what he's going to do with his ability behind the long snapper there. Irish fan says, just out of curiosity, when does the fall semester start?
I don't have it in front of me. I think it's August 24th, 25th, somewhere in there.
Yes, it's the 25th. Chris Borwarka, what is the cutoff date to name a starter? I know we talked about when we thought it would be, but do you think there is a cutoff date where they would absolutely need to have one by?
Okay, there's a difference between naming the starter and them knowing who the starter is. So naming the starter, they could go to 45 minutes before the Miami game to name him. But in terms of knowing who it is, I think it's dangerous to go past the 17th. I think you need a week of camp for that guy to be the starter and a week of Miami prep for the guy to be the starter. So to me, the 17th is the cutoff.
All right. Outbound says, how much more comfortable would fans be if Steve Angeli was still here? For anything, just his composure and calmness.
I mean, as the number 2 guy or the number 1 guy? As the number 2 guy, I think they'd love to have him be the number 2 because they know what they're getting from him. I don't think, I mean, if they thought he was in the running to be number 1, he'd still be here. They would have said, Steve, you got this, or we feel pretty good about your chances of winning it. They did not. They feel like the ceiling's higher for those guys, and they thought that they would see those movement toward the ceiling early enough in this season that they felt comfortable with saying, we can't guarantee you that you would be 1 or 2. So, but as a number 2 quarterback, man, that's the guy that I would want.
Right.
And they'll see him as a number 1, likely in November for Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for all fans, and I think every fan has different people were split on whether or not they thought Steve Angeli was the future at quarterback or not. I think the fact that he left tells you what that Notre Dame was okay with him leaving, because if it felt like he was the starter, Notre Dame wouldn't have let him leave, I don't think. So I think that I think there were still going to be questions with Steve Angeli, even though some people have belief in him based on his limited experience and having stepped up in some bigger moments for Notre Dame previously. But I just, to me, like, I think the other guys can raise the ceiling higher. Maybe Angeli was the one that had, like, you felt like you knew what you were getting with him, but maybe he wasn't going to raise the offense in a way that maybe CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie can. Brian Habermill says, I think these kids will benefit us more in 2026. So are you guys in favor of run the ball, play defense, and try to win turnover margin?
Not for the whole year. I think you will see larger doses of that early. I mean, but when you get to the later part of the year and you get into the playoff, your quarterback's going to have to make some plays to help you win the game. Those teams are too good for you to just do those things. That's where you face other teams with exactly that kind of skill set plus a really good quarterback. And we saw that last year. We saw that from Ohio State. We saw that from Penn State. We did not see that from Georgia with their quarterback. But, yeah, you get into the playoff, you better have a quarterback that can help you win games. But early on, sure, I think you can lean into those traits.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do those things with a high rate of success, I would always be in favor of doing those things. Like, those things don't lose you football games. Being able to run the ball, playing defense, and winning the turnover margin, those things win you football games no matter how
that's the 2012 team.
And I think you can do that. But yeah, if you want to win a national championship, you're going to have to be like truly elite at all those things in a way that other teams can't, that don't have answers for. And if you are so limited in the passing game, it would certainly hurt your ability to be able to have a successful running game.
That team pass efficiency number for the national champion is typically in the top 10, and usually it's in the top 5. It's rarely out of the top 20, and Notre Dame is rarely in the top 20. So this is the evolution of the Notre Dame football program. You need that quarterback, and I wouldn't wait for 2026 for that to happen.
Scott Fegan says, what are the strengths of Miami's defense? I'm sure Denbrock will put together a plan to attack the weaknesses. I hope our passing attack can be part of that.
Last year, they were pretty good against the run. They were very average to below average against the pass. That's where they got nicked up. Now, again, the teams that profile one way to the next year usually had a slower evolution. With the transfer portal, you can get better at your weaknesses pretty quick, and Miami was really active in getting some pretty good defensive backs. So my sense is overall defense, they're going to be pretty good in both aspects, run defense and pass defense, with a better defensive backfield. So I am predicting a lower scoring game for that. We had to make our picks for the Blue and Gold print magazine, which comes out Tuesday.
Yeah, the strength of the defense, as I understand it, is the defensive line. Now, I haven't read anything since like the start of preseason camp over there, and obviously things can develop over the next month. But that's Miami's defensive strength, is defensive line. Ruben Bain as a defensive lineman is someone that can give people fits, that I expect to be on the rise going into this season. So can a bunch of new defensive backs gel together? That'll be a test for Miami. Miami's got a new defensive coordinator, so I think there's only so much you can know about what they're going to do. The defensive coordinator came from Minnesota. His name escapes me, but
That's good.
there's some
Notre Dame
unknown.
looked at him.
No, I think that was the one before him.
Okay.
Rossi. There was a new guy. Hegseth,
Okay.
maybe is his name. Anyways, that's so there's some certainly unknowns about what Notre Dame will be facing in terms of Miami's defense, but I think most people that cover Miami have questioned what if their defensive backfield can sort of take that step, because that was certainly a weakness last year.
Lance Guidry?
That does not sound right at all.
No, that was the outgoing one.
Oh.
Heatherman?
Maybe.
Corey
Hegseth,
Heatherman?
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. I don't.
Okay.
Hegseth is like a politician. He's like,
I know. That's why I thought we better get Heatherman up there, or he's going to be doing double duty, and President Trump isn't going to be happy about that.
Okay. All right. I think those are all the questions.
Okay, so I got one more.
Oh, here we go. Here's one more. Irish Steel says, when do the pads go on? Will you guys get a look at the lines during it?
I believe they went on in their most recent practice, but when we go there Wednesday, which is practice number 6, they will definitely be on. Will we see the lines go at each other? I doubt we see them, the offensive and defensive line, in a drill where they're competing with each other. I mean, maybe we'll get surprised. I doubt it. We'll see the offensive linemen go against other offensive linemen posing as defensive linemen. But I doubt that we'll see, Jason Onye going against, the guards in the center.
Yeah, we got to pray for early offensive line, defensive line action in practice. We got lucky the other day with some one-on-one wide receiver DB stuff. And they were wearing shoulder pads in Saturday's practice, so that the progression of physicality had already begun. So maybe when we get early practice access later this month, we'll see some of the line, but I don't know that we'll get very much of it.
Okay, so here's my last quarterback question for you, Tyler, before we move to other things. On our loose emoji board, this was kind of a big deal. So CJ Carr warms up in a little bit different way and away from his teammates, and there was a lot made of that. I mean, what's your take on that? I didn't get into the chat scrum about that.
I think it is notable. I think it is an oddity. It's not normal. I don't know that. I mean, no one else on that. He's the only one doing it actively.
I've never seen it.
I can't remember having seen it like that before. Does it mean anything? I don't think so necessarily. I think I mean, if everyone's okay with it, I don't know that it's like a slight to his teammates. I think people are reading into it more, and I think the fact that we're just mentioning it, people want to read into it more. We're just trying to paint a picture of what's going on at practice, and
right.
I think people might want to know that, and so I think it was natural to ask CJ Carr why he does that, and he said he sort of gets a little bit anxious when they're sitting there and getting stretching. He that's not what he feels like gets him ready to play or in practice. So I think that's fine. I don't have an issue with it. And I think if you have an issue with it, I don't know why you do. I think it seems kind of silly. And maybe you don't have a good understanding of what it is. So I don't think it's something to make a big deal out of, but obviously when you're in a quarterback competition and the stakes are high, everyone's going to want to make an opinion out of everything.
All right, we're going to go beyond the quarterbacks. We're going to tease out some of the position groups, but I thought it'd be fun to go with some bigger picture takeaways first. So we're going to name our 5 surprises, 5 players you need to see, you want to see more of, and 5 that you needed more of a look at, but now you're all in on. We'll start with the surprises. And just a quick comment on each one as we go through our list. I'll let you go through all 5 of yours, and then I'll do all 5 of mine.
Yeah, it was hard to come up with a list. I don't know.
It's hard to come up with surprises. There haven't been surprises.
I don't know that there were a ton, and now I hate saying that because it's like, well, that means I just knew so much about the team that I can't be surprised. But we just haven't seen enough that there's a catalog of things to learn.
far enough into it because that's when we didn't see the Pendleton Knapp thing until 2 weeks before the season.
So I only had 4. I struggled to come up with a 5 because you said beyond the quarterbacks, and my 5th one was the quarterbacks looked underwhelming.
Okay.
So my first one was Gerby Lambert. I thought he looked good and ready to roll. I wasn't sure how physically ready he would be coming back from his injury. My second one was Will Black. The fact that he was lining up as a third string left guard thought was interesting. Kevin Bauman was someone that I thought looked playable, and I sort of have been hesitant to be willing to say that given his injury history. And then fourth, I had Jabron Payne getting some work ahead of Keedron Young early on as a guy that could maybe be in the rotation at the running back position. What do you got?
Well, I had a couple of the same ones you did. I had Will Black at guard and Gerby Lambert looking healthy. My other ones were Jordan Botello, that he's doing much as he's already doing with that torn pec. Now, he's not doing everything, but he's in some drills. And then he goes off and kind of works over on the side. I also had Scrap Richardson making some plays. I figured he was going to be way back burner, and he probably in reality still is. But he made a couple of catches, including one where his helmet came off on the sideline that I thought was kind of impressive. And then the last one is a special teams guy, Eric Schmidt. He's a big, strong kid with a strong leg. He was doing punting and kicking in practice. I'm not saying that he's going to challenge either James Rendell or Noah Burnett, but I like the fact that he's plan B. I like that as a freshman, he looks like he could come into a game and be competitive already.
Yeah, I needed to get eyes back on Schmidt. When I was looking at the second kicker, I thought it was Marcelo Diomede, and maybe they were rotating, and I just wasn't paying attention to.
Marcello was out there also, so there were 3 kickers that.
So I need to, and they're like, I think it's 48 and 18, so their numbers sort of look the same. So I need to pay closer attention.
Eric Schmidt would win the wrestling match between those two. He's the bigger dude. Okay, so 5 players you needed more of a look at, but now you're all in on.
Going all in feels a little bit aggressive this fast, but
come on, play the game, Tyler, or you're not going to win this.
I'm still
additional Dump Davies sticker that's up.
You keep saying it's your last one, and you keep pulling out more. I think you're manufacturing them over there.
I'm using AI.
All right, yeah, but I did put together a list despite my caveat. First, I had Tay Johnson, someone that I have felt good about, but then seeing what he did and having 2 interceptions in one practice was impressive. Gabriel Rubio. He's someone else that I feel like, okay, I think he's ready to take the next step, but I thought he looked pretty good in some of the limited viewing we had. Junior Tuihalamaka, someone that just he feels like someone that's like, hey, he's not going anywhere. Like, he's going to be there and make an impact for Notre Dame's defensive end spot, no matter who you want to jump ahead of him. If you want trying to look toward the future, he's just someone that is steady and is going to be able to be in position and then in the right position a lot of times. Number 4, wide receiver Micah Gilbert. It was nice to see him get back out there after the hand injury in the spring. And then 5, it went with Elijah Burris as well. I think he continues to do some nice things and is the freshman who I think could possibly contribute at that wide receiver position.
Okay, so my list does not include Tay Johnson. Why? Because he was already my football crush from the spring, so he didn't qualify. Number 1 for me is Malachi Fields. Heard a lot of whispers about him. I expect him to look better as the fall or the preseason goes on, but physically he's a stud. And he took a rep with Leonard Moore on him, and those are going to be some fun battles to watch if they ever let us see one again. Leonard Moore won the one that I saw, but Malachi Fields. 2, Will Pauling. Will at full health looks even better than I thought he looked in the spring. 3, Sullivan Absher. I'm not sure Absher absolutely will be the starting guard in the season opener. I think he will be, and he looks pretty good doing it right now. Number 4, Keedron Young. All in on what? He's the 4th string at best running back, but I he's a guy that I think will do very well. It was interesting to hear Jawan Sider, the running backs coach, talk about him, what a bright future he thinks he has, and that he wants to think of himself as a starter now. Now, he's not starting, but if he can be a situational back or somebody that they use this year, I think that's going to be great for his future. And then my number 5, I kind of cheated with 2 guys and lumped them into one, and that's the freshman cornerbacks. I really like Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary. Did they win every rep? No. But the fact that they're already working a lot with the twos, they look like Mike Mickens has been coaching them. So I like them a lot.
Yeah, I felt pretty strongly that those guys would be able to compete early. So it was good to see them getting out there and doing that.
Okay, so then we go to beyond the quarterbacks, the 5 players you want to see more of.
All right. Number 1, Jason Onye, defensive tackle. Number 2, Donovan Heinisch, defensive tackle. So those are the 2 guys in the interior that I just want to see, okay, where is their game at? What can they do? Yeah. How much of a presence will they provide for Notre Dame in the middle? Sullivan Absher is my 3rd one, the potential starting right guard, just because of the limited time we've been able to see him. KK Smith, is he a guy that's going to challenge for playing time, or is he not? He's sort of a bit of an enigma to me in terms of what he can actually do in terms of providing help as a receiver. And then 5th is Jalen Stroman, the Virginia Tech safety transfer who was hurt in the spring. And so we've got only a limited look at him. I want to see more of him.
Yeah, I should have had a top 27 people because there's a lot of people I want to see more of. And I picked some of the guys further down the depth chart, except for Jalen Stroman. He is on my list. My other 4 are Ty Washington, the tight end. I thought it was really interesting where in the practice number 1 where they were having him line up. He was in the slot some. He was split out wide some. He was in a traditional tight end spot. And just knowing that relationship from recruiting, that Mike Denbrock stood on the table for Ty Washington to come transfer from Arkansas. Really curious how he fits in. Jadon Blair, the 6'5" safety. I don't know where he's going to play. Notre Dame has so many good young safeties around. Adon Schuler and Jalen Stroman's in the mix too. But he had a really good practice. I want to say it was Saturday. He's going to be fun to watch. Christopher Burgess Jr., more of a curiosity. We have seen very little of the defensive linemen do anything other than that first day. Days 2 and 3, they're doing the most boring drills you ever seen in the history of football. And so it's hard to tell whether they're going to push him outside or already get him to where his future is inside, and if he's going to fit in. And I figure he's not going to show up in that mode until maybe halfway through the preseason anyways, but I'd like to see more of him. And then the last one, I was kind of in your wavelength of you doing the defensive lineman, but I went a little bit farther down the depth chart. I'm curious about those guys in kind of the out of the rotation scrum trying to get in. Elijah Hughes, Armel Mukum, and Sean Sevillano Jr., all different kind of body types. Which one of those guys could really help Notre Dame, and could one of those guys be a surprise?
Yeah, if you made me pick like, hey, you can only spend time watching one position group for a full practice, I think I would pick defensive tackle right now, because that is the position I am the least clear on from like top to bottom. Like, how does it work out? Where does the line exist in terms of guys that will be able to play and not play, and then sort of the guys at the top end, how much can they improve and be stable on the inside for Notre Dame?
So we can go to next on our agenda, or we can go back to the question portal.
We got a bunch of questions, so
let's do that.
We probably answered the Tay Johnson part. Well, maybe not. Who's your Evan says, who's your guys' pick for QB1? Also, do you think Tay Johnson can become a starter?
I still haven't moved off of CJ Carr as my number 1, but Kenny Minchie, I like the way he handles himself on and off the field. I think he really made himself a legitimate number 2. There's some of these that the number 2 never is in the race for number 1. I think Kenny's in it, but I do think it's Carr. As far as Tay Johnson, maybe. I think they're going to play 4 guys a lot, and I think Tay Johnson is one of those 4.
Yeah.
at safety.
I think we have pretty much the same answer on both of those. Tay Johnson can become a starter. Willie, I don't know that for certain. I am curious, like, will they take Adon Schuler off the field much, or will it be three guys rotating in next to him? And those three being Tay Johnson, Luke Talich, and Jalen Stroman as the most likely guys as contributors at the safety position. Mike DeVoy says, I know it's early, but what's your trap game this year?
I've been asked that enough that I know what my answer is. It's Pittsburgh. It's a road game in November. It's before Senior Day, and it's after Navy. And Notre Dame has had, in some years, a lot of years, kind of a history of a Navy hangover. And they kind of had a triple option hangover last year. I think it was Army before the USC game. But coming out of playing against that triple option stuff and then having to go against a conventional offense, I think is a difficult gear shift. And so Pittsburgh's my trap game, and it's on the road.
Yeah, Arkansas is one that I think of. I think Arkansas might be too good to be a trap game, but I think there's a chance that Arkansas is not the top echelon of the SEC, so maybe you take them for granted a little bit. After that, I don't know, maybe Boston College coming off the USC game, but you got the bye week. But I don't know. There's such a big, in my opinion, there's such a big like gap between the top teams on Notre Dame's schedule and the rest of the schedule that I think you could consider so many of these a trap game just because they're maybe not as good as you expect them to be, or they're not as good, and maybe you lower your guard. And Notre Dame has certainly had a history of doing that against teams under Marcus Freeman. So the real answer is we have no idea, because if we knew it was a trap, it wouldn't be a trap. All right, Mike.
Have you been drinking? Go ahead.
Michael Campbell is, my observation is, why would Carson Beck look good or play well versus the Notre Dame secondary and defense? And since Freeman has been head coach, what QBs had top performances?
I'll let you go first on this so I can absorb this question, because I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Well, Carson Beck could look good.
Sometimes I'm too dense.
Carson Beck could look good because he's an experienced quarterback with a lot of confidence, and is someone who has been projected as a top pick, although the perception of him slid a bit last year because his turnover rate went up higher. In terms of what quarterbacks have had top performances against Marcus Freeman defenses, certainly Will Howard would be on that list. Championship game. I'm trying to think of other guys. The Tyler Shuck from Louisville, he played pretty well last season. I would probably need to pull up previous year's schedules to look through it to find other ones. But
there's not a long list because Notre Dame has been number one in the country in pass efficiency defense each of the last 2 years. So the list is going to be short. I see what you're saying about it's a conditional. Why would he? You weren't wanting us to predict whether he will or not. I think the condition that would help Carson Beck is if he's the guy from 2 years ago, not the Carson Beck from last year. And also, if Notre Dame can't get a pass rush on him, I think he's pretty good when he has time. If he's rushed, he's just like anybody else. Now, remember, with a different quarterback, guy that was the best player in the country, Cam Ward, they were the number one offense in the country, both scoring and total offense, and in the top 4 in pass efficiency. So at least there's a scheme that's friendly for good passers. We'll have to see if Carson Beck qualifies as one.
Yeah, and the chat brought up Jimmy Page, Chris W., USC's quarterback. That would apply both last season, Jaden Mayava, and even Caleb Williams. And
that was a triple option hangover too. And Al Golden talked about that, not right after the game, but when they got in the playoff.
Right. All right. Brian Habermill says, any two-back formations since the tight end 2 is pretty up in the air. People wanted more last year, but might be more relevant this year.
I'll tell you what, people on our loose emoji board love the two-back formations. If you put it to a Democratic vote, Notre Dame would run that all the time. I do think that there are some more reasons to run it, whether the tight end 2 or 3 emerge or not. And one of the reasons is how dedicated Jeremiah Love was to even further advancing his pass catching skills. He can be a real mismatch in the passing game. He worked out with his trainer, who's Cortland Webb, during the interim break between spring ball and summer, and they worked on nothing but passing stuff. And he does a lot of passing stuff in practice. We haven't seen it as much in training camp in the little bits that we've been in, but in the spring we saw him lining up with the receivers and so forth. You've got some other guys that can be mismatches in the passing game. Now, can they block as well as a second tight end? I think that's what they'd love to see from Keedron Young. He could buy himself some playing time if he could block at 5'11", 240 pounds.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even need them to block if you have them running a misdirection going the other way. Someone's got to follow them so they can account for someone without even having to put their hands on them. Yeah, I think we will see more two-back formations. The frequency may depend on the defense that Notre Dame's playing against. I think particularly if you feel like you're playing against a linebacker unit that doesn't cover well, I think that those could be opportunities to get more running backs on the field and take advantage of that. All right. Scott Fegan says, guys, do you see Marcus Freeman running a special teams play similar to the Virginia game against Miami?
Boy, Jeff Stevens sent me an email about that. I think they changed the rule, and he talked to somebody. I want to say he talked to somebody that explained it to him, but they have to. I don't think that play would pass muster with the new emphasis on what's supposed to be happening, how that play was set up. There was more gray area last year, and maybe it shouldn't have been called, but under the new rule, I think it wouldn't go off without a flag. But they'll come up with some creative stuff. One thing was Marcus was doing, he didn't do as many talks to clubs in May. He and Marty Biaggi were already in May scheming these special teams stuff in May and coming up with some new ideas. So I'm curious to see what those look like.
Yeah, I think more likely than not there'll be some sort of special teams wrinkle. Yeah, I'm not sure Scott was asking specifically if the Virginia play something like that would happen, and I know the rule definitely did get sort of like more concrete. I think is the best way. Like this is they try to more better define it, and I could not explain it to you off the top of my head of what they changed to make it. I know it has something to do with where the guy under center is lined up or behind center is lined up, and also the numbers that are in the box of the jersey numbers. So that was part of the issue last year. Jimmy Page asked, how's Cam Williams doing?
Okay. I mean, to me, he looks like he belongs in the conversation for after the top 4 guys. I mean, I think that it's pretty easy to identify Jordan Faison and Will Pauling and Malachi Fields and Jaden Greathouse. Those are the top 4, not necessarily in that order, but those are the top 4. Then you get into the KK Smith, Micah Gilberts, Logan Saldate, Cam Williams, Elijah Burris. Those 5 may be fighting for 2 spots. Maybe Logan Saldate isn't as squarely in that conversation, given that he's a slot receiver and they're pretty deep there. But Cam Williams is in the conversation. I'm really interested to see how that question is answered around August 17th. That's going to be kind of for me, kind of an inflection point for him in camp, is whether he's made that move toward the rotation.
Yeah, I think Cam Williams looks like he has physically developed. Like he looks stronger than he did as a freshman. I think there was a comment somewhat soon after the Jimmy Page question that was like, yeah, I really had high hopes for him. And it's like, still a lot of time for Cam Williams to do something in his college career. I think people want to move on to the next thing too fast sometimes. And sometimes college football players want to move on too fast too, where they transfer out. But I think some patience needs to be involved with Cam Williams figuring out what he needs to do in terms of being a polished route runner. He's admitted that was a a weakness of his game coming from high school.
Right.
And I think he's improved that. Moving him from the field to the boundary, I think, is an interesting move. And I think he has a tough competition with Micah Gilbert, but I think he is also putting himself in position to compete with him as well. All right, Rajon says the two-back look makes the defense make personnel decisions. No, and then he also asked who would be the best back with Love in a two-back set.
I would say any of Price, Aeneas Williams, and Kedron Young all give you something a little bit different to like back there. I mean, yeah, whether you're in you have two backs or you have three tight ends or you have four wide receivers or empty backfield and five wideouts. I mean, the defense has to decide how they want to match up with that from a personnel standpoint. And then what Mike Denbrock wants to be able to do is say, gotcha, and run a play that you're not expecting out of those formations. That's where Mike Denbrock wants this offense to be, that he has everything in the holster. You know, sometimes Notre Dame was a real good ground and pound team, and they'd have 3 or 4 tight ends in there. And against most teams, that was pretty effective. Mike Denbrock wants to be that when he has to be. He also wants to be really good on the outside when he has to be. He wants to be really good with those backs. Again, it's about finding mismatches on the defense, so it's not going to be uniform from one week to the next, because you're going to see different teams have different strengths and weaknesses with different position groups.
Yeah, I think ideally you'd like to have a second back that is capable of doing everything. And so you don't know which back is going to do what, right? Like you don't know which one may go out for a pass or which one's more likely to receive a handoff. I think you want to have the unknown with all of that. So I think Jadarian Price makes a lot of sense. I think Aeneas Williams makes a lot of sense. Jabron Payne is versatile. I think, like you said, pretty much all those guys can do that. Kedron Young, I think Young is the one that I want to see more in terms of being a pass catcher from him. But I think he's capable of doing that. Just haven't had a lot of chances to see that. So I think there's a number of different things Notre Dame can do with its two backs, and who the two backs are. Certainly with the talent of Jeremiah Love, you'd think he'd be a part of that as much as possible, but Notre Dame can give him a break and still run two back sets and feel confident in the two guys they got out there.
Here's the one thing that I found really interesting about all the running backs and Jawan Sider coaching them is that, and I specifically asked Jawan about Jeremiah Love, but learning to read defenses and read coverages and read fronts, that's new to these guys. They're really getting deep into the X's and O's of the game, and it's helping them understand where the space is going to be for them if they're going out for a pass, for example. And I think that's kind of exciting, and I think that's one of the things that made Penn State's running back so good and so versatile.
Michael Campbell says Brennan Vernon and Cole Mullins, he's asking for updates on them and their potential playing time. He has high expectations for both of them to develop into dudes.
I would not push my chips in on Brennan Vernon. I think he's a little bit banged up right now. He was off to the side doing some stuff with Botello the other day. And I think Cole Mullins has a steep climb to playing time as well. I know they like him. There's just a lot of numbers there, and he would really have to stand out to move up the depth chart. But Brennan Vernon, I'm not sure. I don't know that it's ever going to happen for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, Vernon hasn't surged up the depth chart yet in his Notre Dame career. Mullins is someone who's earlier in his career and is in a similar way to Vernon. Vernon this offseason was like committed to a move to defensive tackle. Mullins has gotten bigger. I'm not sure if he can where he'll play more this year in terms of end or defensive tackle. He continues to grow, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up a D tackle eventually. I'm just not sure that either of them, at least at defensive tackle, would push into the depth of rotation that Notre Dame has right now for this season, but maybe that can happen down the line. Scott Fegan says, guys, do you expect Christian Gray and Leonard Moore to get a few more opportunities to take a play off? Other than blowouts, I think they need a break, and the second string needs the playing time.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. I like the freshmen a lot. Those two freshmen, I like Cree Thomas. Even Chance Tucker looked okay out there. Carson Hobbs gives you some flexibility to play corner or nickel. So yeah, I do think they're going to be able to take some plays off and rest those guys and have them fresh for the fourth quarter. I mean, they were gassed against USC last year. They played, and when you went into the playoff, they played every play but one from the USC game through all four playoff games. They had one playoff between the two of them.
Yeah, it's if Leonard Moore is one of the best cornerbacks in the country, I think it's hard to take him off the field because, like, if you're an opposing coach, you're like, hey, Leonard Moore is off the field. Let's throw at whoever subbed in for him. I think I would take as many chances as I could down the field when Leonard Moore wasn't on the field. Now, obviously, there's a belief that Notre Dame has the cornerbacks that can handle that, but I do think there could be scenarios where you could sub in and out, particularly if a team has run a number of different deep routes and consecutive plays, and you want to give guys a breather. I think there are opportunities that Notre Dame can do that and should be in a position to have guys that they trust to do that. So I do think there will be more opportunities than there was at the end of last season because there just were zero, almost quite literally zero. But I'm not quite sure what that will look like yet.
Okay, real quick, let me throw this in. The next Ben Morrison, Leonard Moore, is it Golden, Zachary, or Cree Thomas?
Golden would be my bet. He's the guy I'm the highest on. I just think he's so versatile and he's a very polished player. So he would be the one that I would put my chips on. But I honestly don't know that I would be surprised by any of them because I think they're all talented. What do you think?
I would agree. If Mark Zachary were 2 inches taller,
right,
I'd put my chips on him. But I'm going with Dallas Golden. I just think, he's the best athlete of the three, even though they're all fantastic athletes.
Right.
But I think Mike Mickens being his position coach will turn him into that really elite corner. And not that the other ones won't be.
Not that they need it this year either, but I think Golden or Zachary could be nickelback guys. I think Thomas could even be a safety. I think there's versatility within their games in terms of being able to play different spots than just traditional cornerbacks as well. All right, we still rolling with questions. ND Milton fan, any players you would like to see at a different position?
With the transfer portal, we see less of that. So I'm not sure that there's somebody that jumps out at me right now. Tyler?
Think? Preston Zinter was the one that I had considered as maybe being a potential defensive end, and they have made that move this offseason. I think eventually, Christopher Burgess Jr. moving from end to defensive tackle, if he is not already at defensive tackle, I think that's something that could happen. Maybe
Anthony Sacca eventually is an end rather than a linebacker. He's a big kid. He's already 240.
Or one of the Kia brothers, maybe too. I think they could potentially be ends. Notre Dame just has so many linebackers. I don't know. They got to find roles for these guys in different ways. So those are guys that come to mind immediately. I don't know that there's. Dallas Golden could be someone that you put at receiver, and I think you'd excel. But I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. And I don't know that I want that to happen either. I think the
guy I think might actually get a chance at that is Joey O'Brien in the next class.
Right. Yeah. Because he's so big.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of linebackers, Jimmy Page says, is Kingston Viliamu-Asa the next Buckus at Notre Dame? And then TD4ND said, who is the better decision maker and play caller at linebacker, Drake Bowen or KVA?
I think Bowen is the better play caller. The thing that's interesting about Bowen and KVA is they keep making each other better. And Jalen Sneed right now is put himself back in the conversation. I think those three. But is KVA the next Buckus? As highly as I think of Sneed, and I've been a Sneed guy since he got on campus, and as highly as I think of Bowen, I still think KVA is the guy with the highest ceiling.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think right now Bowen is the better player with the experience he has, the leadership that he has. So like better decision maker and play caller at linebacker, I would give the nod to Drake Bowen there. I think like playmaker, Kingston
I'm still trying to
Viliamu.
get used to KVA's new haircut.
I think in terms of being a playmaker, KVA offers more like versatility. I think he can do more things in pass rush and pass coverage than maybe Drake Bowen does. Drake Bowen covers a lot of ground, certainly, but I don't know that he has quite as versatile of a game as Kingston Viliamu. But I think both will play a lot for Notre Dame, and I think we can see them playing next to each other as well. All right. Rajon said just Hobbs ? I think you probably just alluding to when we were talking about all the other corners. We haven't really talked about Carson Hobbs. Any thoughts on
He
Carson
had a
Hobbs?
really good spring. He is working primarily at nickel behind Devontae Smith, and he will play. I haven't been paying as much attention to him because I've watched the other corners, but Carson Hobbs has made himself into a pretty good football player. Ben Minnick is also playing nickel.
All right. I think that's all the questions we got.
Do we need to go? Well, let me do one more on our agenda, and then we'll maybe hit recruiting. Dallas Golden was lined up as speaking of which, as one of the return guys the other day. Do you think he's a legit contender to either return punts or kickoffs this year?
I think so. I think he's talented enough to do so. As long as you trust him in his decision-making, his fair catching, and physically securing the kick or punt, I think he could do that. It's interesting because they have guys that are pretty involved in their offense as potential returners, and you don't know, well, how much do you want to put a guy out there like Jaden Greathouse or Jordan Faison that are key members of your offense? Do you want to expose them to extra stuff as returners? So it'll be interesting to see what Notre Dame decides to do there.
Okay, and speaking of which, when I was talking to Jeremiah Love in the little mini media scrum the other day, I said, do you want to, you're not even acting like you need to be in bubble wrap. He just, I want to be. He wants to do more. He wants to catch more passes, run, and he wants to be on special teams. Last year, he was on 2 kickoff returns. He was on 26 snaps for punt coverage. If you're Marcus Freeman and Marty Biaggi and Jeremiah Love says, put me on special teams, do you say, yes, Jeremiah, we're going to do that?
I would be more in favor of him being a returner than a punt gunner, personally, because I think he probably just can make more plays as a punt returner or kick returner. But the first sign of him having a little bit of soreness or anything, I'm pulling him out of there. Like, I don't know that I want to risk losing him, even though certainly Notre Dame has a talented backfield. You want your best running back available to your offense.
Okay. Do you have any more questions before we jump to you for recruiting?
I don't think so. Jimmy just asked, will Love return or Price return kicks if needed?
If I were picking who I think would be the best 2 right now, I would go with Price as the kickoff guy, and I would go with Aeneas Williams. I was a Jaden Greathouse guy. I flipped to Aeneas Williams.
All right, yeah, I think Aeneas Williams would be a good one as well.
Okay, so what's going on with recruiting? We've got a defensive lineman in Sarasota with the last name Golden, first name Elijah, that is going to pick his school on August 9th. So what's the latest with him?
Yeah, just today, Steve Wiltfong put in a Notre Dame prediction, so that could be a good sign of good news to come for Notre Dame. This has been a sort of a long, drawn-out battle for Notre Dame's top remaining defensive tackle target, and we'll find out Saturday what his decision is. That's really the newsiest thing that's going on. Amir Brown is a 2027 running back that Notre Dame felt good about, but he committed to North Carolina over the weekend. A little bit of a surprise. I don't even think he visited there this summer. At least that was what I had read. There may have been more information from our North Carolina side out
Did he have permission from Bill Belichick's girlfriend to visit?
He must have. A couple other things in terms of recruiting coverage I thought was interesting. Well, one that I thought was interesting and one that I did myself, so I can't say I thought it was interesting. That seems a little too boorish. But Rivals released its top 32 5-star recruits since 2000, so that took into account what those guys did as high schoolers and college players that were 5-star recruits that Rivals rated as 5-star recruits. No Notre Dame guys there, but it was a fun list if you're just a fan of college football to see some of the names that were on that list. And then I did a story that came out today. Devin Fitzgerald, Notre Dame wide receiver commit, invited fellow wide receiver commit Caden Finley and quarterback commit Noah Grubbs up to his lake house in Minnesota earlier this summer, back in July. And I was able to talk to all three of them about that experience. They went up there to train together, just hang out, have a good time. Noah Grubbs apparently is better than all of them at golf, ping pong, pool, you name it. They said,
how about fishing?
They said he had to sit out. I'm not sure there was any fishing that was done. There was jet skis involved, and they had a good time. But they also got to Justin Jefferson worked out with them one day. Chris Carter worked out or helped train them. Caden Finley told me he didn't know who Chris Carter was until that moment. So that was kind of interesting. So some interesting insight there into what those guys are doing in terms of trying to improve themselves, but also sort of getting a jump start on the relationships with each other that they hope help them when they get to Notre Dame.
Okay. My last piece of business is thank you for helping us get to 4K in subscribers. Tell your friends, wake the neighbors, have them subscribe to us too. This is up for grabs. We are restarting the Inside ND Sports podcast later this month. By Thursday, we want a new name for it. So leave in the comments your best name for the rebranded Inside ND Sports podcast. And don't call it the Dump Davy podcast, but the winner I will send this sticker to. And Rajon knows I'm good for it because he won the prize the last time I offered up a Dump Davy sticker. That's it.
And
me.
We're not guaranteeing that they get to name the podcast. If we decide to go with something else, we'll hold on the Dump Davy sticker and give it to something else. So I don't want us to have to choose from the best of three options that maybe they are.
Okay, if it's the best option we don't use, I will send you breath mints.
All right, there you go. I'm gonna have to submit a bunch of options because I always need breath mints at these early morning practices. But all right, that's all we got for you guys this week. We appreciate you checking us out. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell someone else about our YouTube content. We will keep it coming as we prepare for Notre Dame's 2025 football season. Have a good week.